Welcome to Staples.
Staples Guy. I've resolved to save my office money in 2017.
Well, during Staples' January printing event, you save big when you buy one HP ink and get the second 40% off.
Oh, that kind of savings will impress the boss. Maybe this year he'll stop calling me New Guy Nick.
Well, there are worse nicknames.
I've worked there 6 years, and my name's Doug.
Resolve to save during Staples' January printing event. Buy one HP ink and get the second 40% off. Staples. Make more happen.
Ends 1/14/17. See store staples.com for details. Restrictions may apply.
I am Vampiro. Hey, what's up, players? This is Teddy Long. Hey, this is Nick Aldis, a.k.a. Magnus.
This is Michael Tarver, a.k.a. Monster Tarver.
This is Tito Santana. This is Donovan Dijak from Ring of Honor.
This is Eric Young.
Hey, this is Rich Bocchini, formerly known as Rich Brennan from WWE. You are listening to Main Event Madness.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah!
Woo!
And now, coming live from blogtalkradio.com and presented by Wrestling-News.net, it's Main Event Madness. Madness Unleashed. You can chat with us during the show using the hashtag MEMLive on Twitter or Facebook.com/Main Event Madness. And now, here are your hosts for tonight's show, John Curry, Marc Madison, and Mike Holland.
With cocaine, this ain't my first rodeo. Wash it down with whiskey, dressed in black from head to toe. No one can stand against me, because we all stand here guilty. Heaven and hell try to save a man without a soul. I get faded, I get let loose sometimes. I get wasted, they say I'm gonna lose my mind. Spend all day long the same old song. Beat my demons down by the crossroads. I get faded, and I don't give a fuck if you call me a rebel. Yeah, yeah, call me a rebel, yeah. Maybe I'm not alone. Yeah, we all sing the same damn song. We all run We get faded, we get a little loose sometimes. We get wasted, they say we're gonna lose our minds. Yeah, spend all day long the same old song. Meet our demons down by the crossroads. We get faded, and we don't give a fuck. We all run We all run Call me a rebel.
All right, guys, welcome to Main Event Madness, August 18th edition of the broadcast. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight, guys. Really appreciate it. I am John Curry. Marc Madison. If you guys missed it on Twitter, which you guys can follow me at John MEM Radio, Mark is at the Marc Madison, and Mike is at Darman Rockwell. Mike has actually been suspended by Main Event Madness due to some undisclosed reasons. We will be addressing his suspension on our SummerSlam pregame show, which you guys can follow get all the information on that by visiting our Facebook page at facebook.com/Main Event Madness. we got a jam-packed panel that we're going to have for that. So it's going to be a lot of fun this Sunday, guys, 4 p.m. Eastern on wrestling-news.net, which is where we are broadcasting right now, and we do each and every week. So I do want to take a second to thank Wayne Daly of wrestling-news.net for housing us every week and for providing some of the best news out there. He does a great job, guys. Does a lot of his own news are not exactly exclusives, but you guys get what I mean. He has a lot of results, so great job, great coverage on wrestling-news.net. And we do got a great show for you guys tonight. Mike Holland is joining us momentarily. And as I mentioned, Marc Madison is suspended. You can see more on that by visiting my Twitter handle, as I mentioned, at John MEM Radio. But as far as tonight goes, we have a lot to get to tonight. We've got who won the week between Raw and SmackDown. We've got some NXT TakeOver Brooklyn we're going to get to. The Cruiserweight Classic, we're going to cover that with Ginsburg's Gab later on in the second hour. We have a topic that I really want to get to, and that is about WWE and are they really too petty for their own good? And I have a few examples that I'm going to get to, and I really want to get Mike's opinion on that, and I want to get all you guys' opinion too. So if you guys want to interact, use the hashtag MEM Live. In about, I'd say about 40 minutes from now, we're going to talk about that. We got Douglas Hart, which was a late addition to the show. But Douglas Hart, once again, from NWA Mid South, is going to be joining us in a little over 20 minutes from now. And at this time, I am going to bring on my co-host that you guys can hear with me each and every week. The one who's not suspended, but should be suspended for tardiness. And that is, he is a writer for TJRWrestling.net, Mike Holland.
Hi, John.
How are you, sir?
I'm good, my friend. How are you?
I am doing pretty good. You know, I fighting some nerves, but beyond that, I'm doing pretty good. Not nerves from the show, some outside of the show stuff, but doing pretty good. I was just running down the show. We got a lot to get to tonight. We're going to talk a little bit about who won the week between Raw and SmackDown. Okay, that's horrible, and I'll message you on Facebook. The song that just came on in the background of what I was talking about. No, when I tell you, you'll really laugh at how horrible this was. So I mentioned we're going to talk about who won the week between Raw and SmackDown, a little bit of NXT TakeOver Brooklyn predictions, the Cruiserweight Classic with Evan Ginsburg later on in the second hour, and a topic that I really want to get to, and that is WWE too petty for their own good? And I have a few examples for that. So I'm going to get to that. Like I said, at about 35, 40 minutes from now, I'm going to get to that. And then we got Douglas Hart, which I was actually just informed by him prior to going on the air that he was going to be calling in tonight. So we're going to have him at 8:30, right after our first commercial break. So we got a packed show, and then of course our pregame show this Sunday.
Yes,
which I am excited for. Sorry about that, guys. Messages, but nonetheless, let's talk about who won the week, Mike, between Raw and SmackDown. First of all, did you watch both shows?
I did. Yes.
What, first off, just point blank, what did you think of the week?
I thought it was a little rough, John.
That's putting it lightly.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a broken record on this topic to some degree, but I mentioned last week, and you know, it's a shameless plug, and I admit it, but I've started a new thing on TJR Wrestling, which I started last week, and the second installment actually went up earlier today, so you can check that out on TJR Wrestling. But what it's about is basically exactly what we're talking about, which is kind of running down Raw and SmackDown and who's doing the better when it comes to the brand split. And this was, it was a rough week. I mean, both shows were trying to set up the matches for Sunday. Each of them has two big matches going into Sunday. Oddly enough, the match that you would probably think would be the focal point for each show was not really the one that they focused on as much, meaning closing out the show. So on Raw, you had Roman Reigns going against Rusev as the last show of the night versus Finn Balor and Seth Rollins, which they handled earlier in the evening. Whether people felt that was the right way to handle it or not, it was done. And then on SmackDown, they closed out, with Cena and Alberto Del Rio. So they were playing off the Cena AJ Styles match rather than the Dolph Ziggler Dean Ambrose. So a little weird. I mean, they definitely got to it. I thought they did a decent job with those 4 feuds. But after that, as far as how the rest of the cards looked, not great. I mean, it was definitely more wrestling heavy, particularly on Raw, than it was last week, which I like. But not a lot of drama. And, kind of tough to hold it over 3 hours or even 2 hours. So overall, I think they're struggling right now with this brand split to try to keep viewers motivated to watch. I think it showed. And they had a couple, I think, missteps, which, I could dig into a little more. But overall, I thought it was okay. Not horrible, not great, but just kind of run-of-the-mill.
I had a lot of problems with Monday Night Raw. First of all, to my recollection, I don't think there was. Oh no, there was. There was a horrible angle with that was this week, right? With Sasha, Charlotte, and Dana supposedly being that was horrible.
Yeah, it was poor the way that they did it. I agree.
And before I get into this even further, guys, on Twitter right now, if you guys follow me on Twitter at John MEM Radio, I put a tweet out. If you guys want to interact with that, who won the week? Interact with us, and we'll talk about this. And I do have a couple polls that I'm going to get to in this segment as well. But like my tweet, if you guys think Raw won the week, or retweet me if you think SmackDown won the week. But my biggest gripe, and I did come around on this, was the Demon Finn Balor being shown on Raw. Right. At first, I absolutely loathed it. To say I hated it was not enough, but I came around on it because then I realized, not everybody watches NXT. So a lot of these casual fans could be tuning in to Raw last week and hearing, Demon Balor, the demon, and people will be like, are they talking about Kane? So,
well, especially with the way Seth Rollins says it, because he says Demon King, and it sounds like Demon Kane.
Yes. Which I'm okay with the gimmick. The gimmick's all right, but so I came around on that, and it was historic for the Finn Balor character in that it was the first time since he debuted in NXT that the Demon was confronted.
Right.
So that I liked, to see an actual confrontation, not a match, but an actual confrontation between the Demon and somebody else, namely Seth Rollins. But you get my point. That I did like. What I didn't like is it wasn't the focal point of Raw. I'm sorry, but you want the Universal Championship to be on the same level as the WWE title. This isn't the World Heavyweight Championship you're talking about here. It's a brand new red belted championship, that, at least according to the rumors, that you're going to be introducing for your brand. It's a brand new championship. It's not a championship that has any prestige at all. You have to build this title from the ground up. And the fact that your go-home show to your second biggest pay-per-view of the year and you don't close it with that, I laughed. And I even put on Twitter, I'm like, WWE, you cheeky bastards. we're going to take Roman Reigns out of the main event. We'll take him out of the main event title picture, but then we'll have him close Raw 2 weeks in a row. It's like,
yep.
Fuck you, WWE. Granted, Reigns in those 2 weeks has been better.
I think listen, I think you're right, John. But I would say, we touched on this a little bit last week. I don't know what to make of some of the decisions that WWE makes, and I think that they're trying to do this thing now. I feel where they want to have their cake and eat it too. In other words, they want to react to what fans are pointing out. So when they announced the Universal title, I think most people were like, okay, this sounds really corny and really lame, and we don't like it. And oddly enough, WWE has kind of incorporated that into their storyline. Like they have, Daniel Bryan and Shane McMahon making fun of the Universal belt. And, you could be setting up a feud for later, involving both titles. Who knows what they're going to do? But it's just weird. It's very strange, like you said, that they would make a big deal of this and then sort of also want to keep the comedic element. And I felt the same way about this as well. Like the backstage vignettes of Seth Rollins looking for, the Demon King were ridiculous. It was the kind of comedy that we've come to expect from WWE, and it doesn't bother doing it. It just doesn't make it serious. It doesn't make it like it's really a showdown between the best guy in the NXT and the best guy in the WWE. And that's all they have to do to book this feud properly. Is say, hey, Finn was the man in NXT. He was better than anybody else. And Seth has been the man in the WWE and has been better than anybody else. It's not that hard. But instead, they're kind of hitting the fast forward on this Demon King thing in order to, I assume, use the Undertaker's smoke machine, a little bit more. And other than that, it just kind of feels like it's too early in this feud for that to happen. All of that being said, I'm totally with you. I think as far as moments went, it was a great moment. And I thought the way they did it with him coming out and getting the drop on Seth Rollins to some extent. They teased it. It wasn't a lot of physicality, but it was just enough to make you feel like Finn could presumably beat Seth, which up to this point, if you don't watch the NXT product, I think most fans would have a tough time feeling like Finn Balor could get the job done against Seth Rollins. We just don't know enough about him or his dominance, in NXT. And so it's a tough spot for the WWE. So I feel your pain on that, and I can't argue the point. I definitely feel like they should have closed Raw with it, and I think it's weak that they did not, because historically they always focus on the big title match at the end of Raw. And I thought it was weird in both cases, because I'm assuming you're with me that in SmackDown, it's the same thing. I mean, it's great to see John Cena wrestle Alberto Del Rio prior to his suspension, but the match that we're supposed to be paying the money for is Dolph and Dean Ambrose. They pretty much, they had a great moment early in the show, and then it was the short end of the stick. We didn't hear from Dolph again for the rest of the evening. And so as far as build goes, was it effective? Sure. Was it the best they could do? I think that's a tougher question.
The biggest thing that got me was Roman Reigns pinning Rusev fucking clean in the middle of the ring. That creates absolutely zero, none, no intrigue whatsoever for SummerSlam. And I say that why? Because if he did it once, after getting beaten up in the back, so he wasn't 100%, who the fuck thinks he can't win at SummerSlam?
Well, I agree.
What would have been a better ending to Monday Night Raw? Yes, the match, go ahead and do that. But instead of having that match end clean, you save that visual for SummerSlam. And if you want to end Raw with Reigns, have Reigns get the absolute shit beaten out of him. Have them get broken up by referees, clear the locker room, the old shit they used to do 10 years ago. Really build on the drama aspect of it and build up the intrigue and the interest and the, what's the word I'm thinking of? The suspense. Of can Roman beat this rejuvenated Rusev? Can he do it with the U.S. title on the line? And I guess that's the aspect that they're trying to go to now is, well, he did it on Raw, but can he do it with the title on the line? Why the fuck couldn't he do it when he could do it with the world title on the line 3 times, but he can't do it with the U.S. title a week to heal? Who? Oh, go ahead.
Well, like you said, they had Rusev, get the advantage earlier. So if ever there was a time for Roman to lose, this would be it. But what's interesting to me is I think it's exactly what you said. I think WWE is just like, hey, look, we're still going to give you Roman Reigns, whether you want it or not. Now, the interesting thing is whether he actually will win on Sunday, because there is a logic to the idea that generally the better you look going into your match, the worse you actually do in your match. So a lot of times they will have on Raw the challenger win, and then on SummerSlam or whatever the event is, the champion retains. The only way, of course, that would happen here is if there's some kind of interference angle booking the next person that they're going to have facing Roman down the line. So it's something to consider. I think all signs point to the fact that they definitely want to get the U.S. title. But I'm a little unconvinced only because of the suspension angle. I think that really hurt Roman in the locker room. I don't think it means that WWE is going to change their grand plan, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was kind of a little bit of a fakery out of WWE, where they're really booking Roman strong going in, making it very clear that it looks like he's going to win this secondary belt, and then something goes on to set up whatever program Roman is going to be doing next after this thing with Rusev. So it's interesting to consider, but I fully agree with you 100%. I mean, the fans are not responding to Roman. It's actually worse since the suspension. And Rusev is getting some heat because of this whole, wedding with Lana. So unfortunately, the WWE just keeps trotting it out there, thinking that things are going to change. And fans don't really care as much as they could if they were investing in a different angle. So, I get your rage, and I think it's fair. It'll be interesting to see on Sunday, though. I will say that, I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Roman Reigns wins the U.S. title on Sunday. Just my opinion.
I'm going to end this with one comment. I think it's a foregone conclusion. I don't give a shit. And I think had he not beaten Rusev on Raw, I would have given a shit. But I give absolutely no fucks about this match. Why? Because Roman wins. LOL. And that's my prediction. Spoiler for Sunday's show. So really quick, before we get ready to head to our first commercial break, I want to ask you point blank, which brand wins the week, Raw or SmackDown? Last week, SmackDown wins. This week is really tough.
It is really tough.
And it's like, which one? It's not I didn't mean to cut you off. It's not a case of which one was better. It's a case of which one wasn't as bad. It's like there's bad and worse. There's no good.
Well, it's really funny because when I posted my article, John Canton, who runs the site, sent me an email back, and he was like, it's a really good article, but I disagree with you. I think because my feeling is that Raw won the week and my logic was that Sami Zayn was on the show and had a decent match against Sheamus, but I liked the Rusev Roman match a little bit more than I liked the John Cena Alberto Del Rio match. And basically, each of the shows was built around that one match. Not to say that nobody else did a good job, but that was clearly the focal point. A lot of one-sided matches this week. So I had said that I feel like at the end of the day, I'm going to give the nod to Raw. And his response was kind of like, I don't know. I think it might have been SmackDown. And I said, honestly, it's like the tallest midget. I mean, the one guy's 4'11" and the other guy's 4'10". So I think you could go either way. If you were to make an argument for SmackDown, I get it. But I think between the two main events, I felt like they set up the Rusev Reigns a little better. And I thought the match itself, the ending, of course, whatever. But I thought the match itself was actually a little bit better. So I would go Raw this week. But to your point, it's really not a thumbs up as much as a not quite as big thumbs down.
We're going to have our first tie because I say SmackDown. And I say SmackDown. And we'll go to the Twitter polls here in a second. I don't know. I know it's only been a couple of minutes, but I say SmackDown because if they're going with the old school booking mentality that the one who gets the edge on the week before the show is the one who loses. So if that's the case, that John Cena is going to lose to AJ Styles on Sunday. And if that's the case, I'm okay with it. So I'm going to give it to SmackDown, give it a little bit of a refresh, and we'll find out the tiebreaker. While I do that, guys, this is Main Event Madness. We are live. This is the August 18th edition of the broadcast. Excuse me. Coming up after this commercial break, we have Douglas Hart of the NWA Mid South. He's going to talk about the NWA's events coming up and their return to Japan. So you guys are going to want to stick around for that. And then after that, we're going to talk WWE being petty. What do I mean by that? You guys are going to have to tune in later on, and you guys are going to have to see what I mean. Also, we're going to be talking with Toph. Christopher Epps from PWP Nation. He's going to be calling in about a half an hour from now. We're going to be talking some NXT, and I think we may even save the WWE pettiness for him to come on the show, because I think that'd be a great conversation with him. And then later on in the show, we're going to be talking some Cruiserweight Classic with Evan Ginsberg, Legends TV. But right now, guys, this is Main Event Madness. The madness is unleashed. We're going to be hitting a commercial break, as I said. We have Douglas Hart of the NWA Mid South coming up right after these words.
All right, so you want to know what's going on with the show, and you want to know who our next guest is going to be. Well, the easiest place to do that is Facebook. Facebook.com/Main Event Madness is the official Facebook page for Main Event Madness Radio. Come check us out and give us a like and help spread the word and make this a movement. Facebook.com/Main Event Madness. Looking for wrestling news, missed a live event, and want the best results? Well, look no further. Wrestling-news.net is the place to go for all of the pro wrestling news and results your heart desires, with coverage of the WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, TNA, Ring of Honor, Global Force Wrestling, Independence, and more. Also, is your favorite promotion overseas? No problem either. Wayne Daly has results and news for promotions all over the world. Check them out today, wrestling-news.net. Visit pwpnation.com for exclusive wrestling articles you won't find anywhere else. Since 2012, Pro Wrestling Powerhouse has produced original content from a dedicated team of wrestling analysts and fans from across the globe. pwpnation.com has now expanded into the world of wrestling news, podcasts, videos, and so much more. Make sure to visit pwpnation.com today. From the associate producer of The Wrestler, and in the tradition of Joe Franklin and Ed Sullivan variety talk shows, Evan Ginsberg's Legends TV features an eclectic mix of legendary million-selling musicians, indie artists deserving greater exposure, and colorful pro wrestlers. Co-hosted by Steve Ludwig of Classic Pop Culture Radio, the show airs live every Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern at MadhouseTV.com and LegendsTVNYC.com. Martha Wash, Crown Heights Affair, Lanny Poffo, Nicole Bass, and other legends have joined us. You missed the birth of your mother and father. Don't you dare miss Evan Ginsberg's Legends TV. Coming soon, a website with news, a website with columns, a website with madness. MainEventMadness.com is returning soon with a new look, a new attitude, and we're raising the game to a whole new level. Don't miss new columns, our entire Main Event Madness archive featuring legendary guests, wrestling news, a chat you can use with us during the show, a store, and more. Don't miss the new MainEventMadness.com, coming soon. From the ashes of our old website comes a fresh new face from Main Event Madness. MEM Network is here. Check out all of your favorite episodes of Main Event Madness, Work in Progress, Wrestling's Rope Break, and Evan Ginsberg's Legends TV. More shows to be announced in the future, but check out memnetwork.wix.com/home, where the madness runs wild.
Greg DeMarco presents Pro Wrestling Biz, the internet's premier host of analysis, opinion, and wrestling columns. Whether it's covering World Wrestling Entertainment, Lucha Underground, Impact Wrestling, Ring of Honor, or any other independent wrestling promotion, Pro Wrestling Biz has you covered. With daily news, show reviews, covering pay-per-views or iPay-per-views, Pro Wrestling Biz will offer viewers an array of opinions from some of the most knowledgeable wrestling writers on the internet.
tell it I've been gone too long. To hear them talk about me, say I'm doing wrong. But I've been on my own since 15, when the death in jail before me. Drag my name through mud and I still come out clean. I get faded, I get let loose sometimes. I get wasted, they say I'm gonna lose my mind. Spend all day long the same old song, beat my demons down by the crossroads. I get faded, and I don't give a fuck if you call me a rebel.
All right, guys, we are back. This is Main Event Madness Radio. We are live tonight, August 8th, of the broadcast, guys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And you guys were listening to the band Shallow Side, which you guys can follow them on Twitter and like them on Facebook, both at Shallow Side Band. Check them out. They got great music, guys. And trying to find where this is. So bear with me for just a second while we're waiting for Douglas Hart of the NWA Mid South, who's actually on hold right now. I'll bring him on in just a second. But that was the band Shallow Side, which, like I said, at Shallow Side Band on both Twitter and Facebook. And if you guys are in the Dyersburg, Tennessee area, check out Bikini Bottoms, where they're going to be opening for Puddle of Mud, which is a great rock band themselves. So, guys, definitely check them out if you're in the Tennessee area. And that's Shallow Side, facebook.com/Shallow Side Band, and that is their hit single Rebel, which is, we are very appreciative and thankful that they're allowing us to use that as our theme song. You guys can check that out on iTunes and Spotify as well. And at this time, we are going to bring on Douglas Hart of NWA Mid South. You guys can follow him on Twitter at Douglas Hart NWA, right? I'm having a brain fart there.
That is correct, sir. Thank you for that.
Not a problem. How are you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing fantastic, and I must add a little shameless plug here. I'm not only the social media director for NWA Mid South Wrestling, coincidentally in Dyersburg, Tennessee, where Bikini Bottoms is actually just outside of, but I am also officially the NWA social media director and a consultant for NWA Texoma in Sherman, Texas.
Well, there we go. You guys have just listened to the Schilling Corner. Now, if only we could get Kurt Schilling, former baseball player, to do that voiceover, that'd be amazing. But nonetheless, you got some good events coming up. You had alluded to in Twitter. So do you want to enlighten the listeners what you got coming up, including a visit, I believe you said, to the land of the rising sun? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Let me get to NWA Mid South this weekend first, and then I will talk about the NWA's return to Japan. This weekend, NWA Mid South has run 2 shows on Fridays and Saturdays before, but we return to doing that this Friday night, August the 19th, when we debut at the Power Pro Arena in Ripley, Tennessee. It's 207 Washington Street in downtown Ripley, Tennessee. We're going to have the main event. Jacob Edwin, who is vying to be the NWA Mid South Rookie of the Year, will challenge the Golden Boy Greg Anthony for the NWA National Heavyweight title. And for those of your listeners who may not have heard of the National Heavyweight Championship, it's been held by such ring greats as Ted DiBiase, Terry Taylor, Dusty Rhodes, Buddy Landale. The list goes on. And Greg Anthony is now a 2-time National Heavyweight Champion. Also, Saturday night, should he retain the championship, Greg Anthony will defend it against a mystery partner with the services of his managerial nemesis, Christopher White. They've been warring with each other for months on end, it seems like. And every time that Christopher White brings somebody in, Greg Anthony just mows them right back down. But you never know who it could be this Saturday night. Like I said, it's a mystery opponent. Now, down to the NWA in Japan, I believe it's Sunday, September the 26th, the NWA World's Tag Team Champions, Matt Riviera. You can follow him on Twitter at New Era Riviera, and the Iron Man Rob Conway, who's on Twitter at The Rob Conway. They're going to be defending the NWA World's Tag titles at an event for Diamond Stars Wrestling in Tokyo, Japan. Also, I believe he'll be on the trip. I don't know if he'll be in their corner or not that night, but the president and owner of the NWA, Mr. Bruce Tharp, will be in Japan for this trip. We're very excited for our return to Japan. We're very appreciative of Diamond Stars Wrestling for hosting this event. Give me just a second, guys, and I'll find the Twitter address for them. It's a great time for wrestling. You know, Ring of Honor just announced a new partnership with CMLL and New Japan, and they're all going to work together. And we love that spirit of cooperation in the wrestling world as the National Wrestling Alliance, the world's oldest governing body in professional wrestling. You can follow Diamond Stars Wrestling on Twitter at Diamond_Stars_W. They're going to be a hot deal in the Japanese wrestling scene for many years to come. We're very grateful for them. Once again, Matt Riviera, Rob Conway, the Iron Empire, the NWA World's Tag Team Champions defend their belts for Diamond Stars Wrestling Sunday, September the 26th in Japan, Tokyo to be specific. Guys, I guess I'm going to open it up to questions. Last time we had some technical difficulties and we weren't able to get those questions answered, so anything you've got to ask, I'll be more than happy to answer.
I just, sorry, I had a brain fart here. I was writing a couple notes down. How did the Japan show come about?
You know, I don't know specifically. Mr. Tharp would be a better person to ask that. However, I do know that the NWA, as we always have great connections in Japan. I believe it was Mr. Jimmy Suzuki that helped foster this deal. I could be wrong, so please don't quote me on that. But the scuttlebutt on Twitter and everything is, I believe he's brokered this deal. We're very grateful to Mr. Suzuki for all he's done for the NWA. He actually, last year, brokered a deal with former TNA X Division champion Sonata to challenge then NWA World's Junior Heavyweight Champion Steve Anthony at St. Jude Slamathon for NWA Mid South back in June of last year. So Mr. Suzuki was actually in Dyersburg, Tennessee, taking pictures of that monumental encounter. And I got to tell you, Sonata, former X Division champion, almost became the NWA World's Junior Heavyweight champion. It was that awesome of a match. And might I add, we had Jim Cornette on commentary that night.
Sounds like great stuff all around. Now, my biggest thing I want to ask you, are there any hints about that mystery opponent you can give us or give the listeners without giving it away?
Honestly, you know, there are very, very few people who know everything about NWA Mid South. I know more than most, but even I don't know that. I have an idea of who it might be, but that's just on my best educated guesses. And I really want to tell the fans who I think it might be, because if it is who I think it is, I don't want to spoil the surprise for anyone. But let's just say, if it's who I think it is, it's going to be a third-generation superstar of a Memphis wrestling legend. 2 Memphis wrestling legends, might I add.
So definitely some deep wrestling pedigree there. So intrigue nonetheless, and I'm really excited to find out who that's going to be. And if you guys are in that area, definitely check out those events. Douglas, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yes, guys. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Not a problem. And the beautiful thing is this time there were no audio issues. Is that correct, Mike? Were you able to hear him this time?
Absolutely.
So
heard it and enjoyed it.
All systems are go. So I will say this. Anytime you want to come back on, anytime you got anything you want to promote, we're more than happy to help you guys out and help anybody who wants to help support independent wrestling, and in particular NWA Mid South, NWA Texoma. So last chance. Any last plugs you want to get out of the way? The next minute or two are yours, Douglas. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, gentlemen. Once again, my name is Douglas Hart. I am the social media director for the world's oldest governing body, the National Wrestling Alliance. Also the social media director for NWA Mid South Wrestling out of Dyersburg, Tennessee, and a consultant for NWA Texoma out of Sherman, Texas. You can follow NWA Mid South at NWA_Mid South. You can follow the NWA on Twitter at NWA Wrestling. My Twitter address is at Douglas Hart. That's H-A-R-T, at Douglas Hart NWA. And also the NWA president, Bruce Tharpe, is at RBTHARPE. And NWA Texoma on Twitter is at NWA_Texoma. You can visit our website, www.NWA Mid South. Also, we have an app on Google Play that you can download. Like I said, guys, thank you so much for allowing me to come on, and I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely, man. We'll definitely be in touch, and best of luck with any events between now and when we talk again. Hopefully, it's in the near future. Maybe as more is announced, we'll talk again about that Diamond Stars Wrestling event you got in Japan on September 26th.
Awesome, definitely. Thanks, guys. Y'all have a good night.
You too, man. Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. That was Douglas Hart of NWA Mid South. So be sure at Douglas Hart NWA, among others, at NWA_Texoma, among other handles, as he had mentioned, guys. If you're in that area, definitely go check out those events. And that Japan show, Mike, is definitely sounding like a fun one. But let's switch gears here. We've got a lot to, and I mean a lot to get to in the next hour and a half, or just under an hour and a half. I suppose we should talk about this now rather than later. And that is NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. We're going to get the good out of the way before I get fired up and pissed off about WWE. We're going to open up the second hour with that. But I got to be honest with you, and I'm going to get absolutely shit on by people for this. And I mentioned in the show description, this could be slightly controversial this week. This is a pretty weak NXT lineup. I'm going to get absolutely shit on for that. I'm waiting. Wayne Daly, Wrestling-News.net's been listening in tonight, and I'm waiting to hear his comments about that.
You're waiting to see what he's going to say to you?
Yes. Yes. But I didn't mean to cut you off, sir.
But Dan, you have to clarify, because when you say that, you're comparing it to the other NXT events.
That is true. That is true, and that's not slighting the talents that are involved in that match. Joe versus Nakamura is going to tear the house down. That's going to be a great match. I just don't see Manny Andrade. I know it's Dwayne. What's his what's his other? Do you know his new name? Not Manny Andrade. He's that CN.
Yeah, Andrade CN Almas.
Okay. I know they're starting to build him up, but I just don't think that that putting him against Austin Aries and putting No Way Jose against Austin Aries and putting Andrade Almas against Bobby Roode. I mean, how does a casual person who knows the two aforementioned guys, Roode and Aries, from TNA, wherever they were, how do you look at that and not think automatically that Roode and Aries are going to win? You're hardly, especially Roode, you're hardly going to have them lose.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a good effort, but I mean, I look at those two matches, and maybe it's because I haven't watched that much NXT in the last few months. So maybe that's it. But,
go
ahead.
Well, I was going to say to you, I do think, I mean, first of all, I don't think you're that off base as far as the fact that the card, let's face it, part of the draft is they pulled up a lot of the talent. And so when you do that, you have to kind of reset. And this is a resetting type of a card. It's not to say that it won't be good. It has two debuts on it, because you've got Ember Moon and you've got Bobby Roode. So that's a big deal as far as that goes. And you've got 3 championship matches, including, like you said, Samoa Joe, Nakamura, which, what can you say? I mean, it's got everything, tons of intrigue. But you're right. Like the rest of the card, it suffers a little from what's there. And My issue is I think you hit the nail on the head. Bobby Roode and the Austin Aries matches are basically the same match. You've got the happy gimmick face type going up against, the guy who's all business. And so therefore you would have to assume that they can't both win. So it just kind of comes down to, in my opinion, who do you think of those two matches, how are they going to split it? Personally, if I was putting a percentage on it, I think No Way Jose will beat Austin Aries. I think,
we're definitely in agreement on that. If either one of those two are going to lose, it's going to be Aries. And Aries, and you look through Aries' career, he's no stranger to doing the job, especially for a younger guy. So I think we're both in agreement. No Way Jose over Austin Aries. If they indeed go that route, I would be shocked if both Roode and Aries win. But I think we both can agree that Rude's going to beat Andrade. I really don't see him losing his first match, especially all the hoopla around his debut and all that.
I don't either. And I mean, to be honest, I bow to other superior knowledge of Andrade. But to me, I don't really get, the whole gimmick thing, a male Chippendale or something. And I'm not really sure what's going on there. But Bobby Roode, unbelievable promo, has a lot of heat going into it. Totally makes sense to have him go over. I will say this though, John, as excited as I am for Samoa Joe and Shinsuke Nakamura, which, is to say on a scale of 1 to 10, probably 11. I'm also excited about the women's championship match between Asuka and Bayley because I personally, in my opinion, and it's just my opinion, I think both of those champions, I actually think all champions retain at TakeOver, but to me, the only correct way to book this is to actually have Samoa Joe, improbably perhaps, and Nakamura his first loss in NXT. I think it actually benefits both guys. Nakamura doesn't need to win anymore. He really doesn't. His charisma is such it doesn't matter if he wins or loses. And I think Samoa Joe is a really important figure for the WWE as they sort of get into this, ground where they're bringing guys up to the next level. I mean, Nakamura, it's not a question, right? If, it's when, probably for both guys. So I may be in the minority. I haven't really seen what people are predicting for this, but I like Joe to actually beat Nakamura. And as far as Asuka and Bayley, I personally want, myself, full-on heel Asuka just demolishing Bayley. Because, again, Bayley's headed to the main roster. She could go tomorrow, and she probably needs to based on all these suspensions that, are going fast and furious today in the locker room. So if I was booking it, if it was my show, I would put both of those champions over in a big way. And I think it would surprise some people, but I also think it would make that show that much more memorable if you actually went that direction. So whether that's my hope or prediction, I leave it up to the audience. But I think it will have some moments. It's a tough card compared to the standard that they've set for themselves, and they're to be given credit for that.
Yeah, I don't. Nakamura and Joe is a very touchy subject. And I say that because you don't know. Whoops. That's for a few minutes from now. I don't know if I agree, only because I don't want to see Nakamura lose. He's one of those few guys that has a lot of luster to him, and the fact that he hasn't had all that many matches, why would you post that picture? Mark Marrow's brother at Thoughts with the Marrow family was in a bad motorcycle accident. And the guy's all ripped up, like skin wise. Why would you show your brother like that?
Weird.
I never understand why people do the things they do, but nonetheless, Nakamura has come in with a very, it's almost like a little bit of a mystique to him, because he's such a breath of fresh air for the WWE and for NXT, that Samoa Joe is so Brock Lesnar-esque that you watch Joe and it's like, okay, We've seen this one. But then, like, Nakamura, like, even grabbing his nose last week, like, that's shit you don't ever see. So I don't know, especially in the eyes of the casual viewer, if you can have Nakamura lose his first title challenge. I don't know if you can have him lose that.
Well, that's fair. Although I think you, like you said, it's a two-front thing, because on the one hand, what's best for NXT? On the other hand, what's best for the main roster? And to me, you know, it's exactly what you said. You have to book Joe as dominant because that's the whole gimmick. And I mean, listen, they could do a swerve to some degree. They could have, Nakamura win by DQ or something like that.
Right.
But, you know, that's always a possibility. I'm just saying, if I was looking at myself, I don't think Nakamura needs a belt. That's how amazingly, again, and I've said this multiple times on the show, if you have not watched, I have not seen much of Nakamura prior to NXT.
Which we're both in the same boat on.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you watch him, you understand what it's all about. There's very rare that you can have a talent where he just shows up and doesn't even have to do anything.
Doesn't have to say a word.
Like, wow, this guy's amazing.
And it's, and I say, go back to when I said the mystique, because all you got to do, and he's so much like, it's similar to almost the Undertaker, not in the fear aspect, but like the Undertaker and Stone Cold Steve Austin, with these iconic guys that when their music hits, everybody loses their shit. And it doesn't help, or it doesn't hurt that his entrance is completely badass. That doesn't hurt. But I think historically in professional wrestling, the biggest recipe for success has been the heel champion being chased by the babyface challenger.
Yeah.
And I think Samoa Joe has long proven that he is deserving of a main roster run. So especially with Rude and Aries, and now there's talk that James Storm may or may not be coming into NXT and may or may not be done with TNA again, which I think he's absolutely moronic if he doesn't go to NXT now, if he is indeed done with TNA. But, and Eric Young, thank you, Wayne. I did see that on wrestling-news.net, which, by the way, if you guys want to check that, he's got that, and he's got an update on Nikki Bella, who has actually been cleared to compete. So that's another thing we got to watch for, and we're going to talk about that with Christopher Epps from PWP Nation in a few minutes. But yeah, with Eric Young, as I just mentioned, Wayne had that report up coming in, and possibly James Storm. I mean, NXT may, but they got a good group. I think you can get away, and it's kind of contradictory because I think this lineup would have been helped dramatically by American Alpha and Finn Balor. But
absolutely.
But I think if you could build this, they have what's it? Wayne, do they have another? And I know you're listening right now. Does NXT have another London show coming up in October? And yes, I almost want to call this NXT from now on, because it's what TNA could be if Dixie Carter's head wasn't clean up her ass, and there goes any chance of getting an interview. But I'm kind of procrastinating to see if Wayne knows if there's another London NXT event. Actually, you know, it'd be sick. And if they don't have a London one, do an NXT in Japan.
Sure.
And imagine the crowd if Nakamura wins the NXT title in Japan. And then you let Joe come up to the main roster, and he wants a match with Brock Lesnar. If we're not going to get Brock 2, which is what Vince has been creaming himself over for the last 15 years, then I say let Joe have Balor. Why not? Who is the last mastodon beastly guy that's wanted to challenge Brock Lesnar that's not 850 years old? I am fully with that, Wayne. Wayne said they should do an NXT TakeOver Canada. Fully with that, because they can shut up. I'll shut up and they can just take my money. But especially since I'm going to be in Canada that weekend. Which, by the way, brings me to this. Are you coming with us?
Well, I have already told you I'm working on it.
Okay.
It's being worked on.
Okay. I had to put you on. I had to call you out. And I had to put you on the spot there.
I know you always you love to do that. Yeah, that's true. I'm working on it because I don't know if Canada is big enough to handle
the full Main Event Madness team.
Yeah, I don't know if they're prepared for that in the Great Lakes.
You know what I'm not prepared for, even though I love the view that I'm going to have. What I'm not prepared for is the fact that I'm spending $165 on a room in Niagara Falls before I go up to Toronto. But hey, I'll show you the pictures. That is a gorgeous view. Like I got the whole. It's like a window on the a window on the side of my bed and window facing the falls. So I had like a whole almost side for the corner of the room, like a panoramic view of the falls. And I haven't been to Niagara Falls in 10 years. And even that I don't really count because I was only there long enough to stay a night or two when we were up in Toronto. And I was at a casino hotel. So the last time I was really in the falls, well, I wasn't in the falls because I'm not one of those idiots that goes under a bucket, but nonetheless, or the barrel, whatever it is. The last time I've been there was like 15 years. So I kind of feel justified, but I kind of want to go and try to find a cheaper hotel. And I'm pissed that I just missed out on one with a balcony. That would have been like would have been maybe $100.
You got to do the full experience.
That's why I'm doing it, but I don't know if I want to spend the money. It's booking.com. I got to get sponsorships from these people I keep name dropping. We get one, booking.com, Angry Orchard. What do you drink? Whiskey sours?
What don't I drink?
That is a very good question. I think that's a much shorter list than what you do drink.
I mean, if we're pushing for sponsorships, if Maker's Mark wants to send me any type of propaganda, I'd be happy to use it because it's delicious. But I also want to say to you, John, because you're dancing around this, I don't understand. You of all people, we've been this far into the show. We're halfway through the show. You haven't mentioned that I'm sure you're at home wearing black because Ava Marie is suspended.
We were going to get to that, and we're going to take a very, very quick timeout. But my thoughts on that are,
you're upset. You're upset about it.
Actually, I am wearing all black, but that's because I'm going to the gym immediately after the show.
Oh, sure it is. It has nothing to do with the fact that Ava is suspended.
The worst part is it's a Batman shirt. Which I guess you can call her husband trying to be Batman, trying to save the day. But my little teaser before we hit commercial here is...
Is that Damien Sandel's coming out?
Yes, but it serves its purpose nonetheless. Praise God and hallelujah, I don't have to see Eva Marie for a month. But nonetheless, guys, we are going to take a very, very quick time out here. When we come back, Christopher Epps, Toph from PWP Nation, is going to be joining us, and we are going to talk about the new era in WWE. It finally has a name. It does. The suspension era. I'll give myself one as we go to commercial break. This is Main Event Madness Radio. We are live August 18th. And when we come back, we're going to talk WWE being petty. You're going to have to hear this. And we're going to talk Cruiserweight Classic with Evan Ginsberg from Legends TV in about a half an hour from now, guys. Main Event Madness Radio. We are where the madness is unleashed. And we'll be back just after these brief words. But before we go to break, I will give myself one. Do you feel better now?
I do.
I gave myself a double one. Main Event Madness Radio. We're right back after these words.
It's summertime. Ladies looking hot, shaking up what they got. Elephant man and cat, come on.
Don't miss live Sunday, August 21st. Main Event Madness brings you its SummerSlam pregame show. Come be a part of the fun beginning live at 4 p.m. Eastern on wrestling-news.net, blogtalkradio.com/Main Event Madness as we talk all the news, rumors, and predictions for the second biggest event of the year. Join John Curry, Marc Madison, Wayne Daly, Mike Holland, and more August 21st at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss it.
Tell it I've been gone too long. To hear them talk about me, say I'm doing wrong. But I've been on my own since 15. When the death in jail before me. Drag my name through mud and I still come out clean. I get faded, I get let loose sometimes. I get wasted, they say I'm gonna lose my mind. Spend all day long the same old song. Beat my demons down by the crossroads. I get faded, and I don't give a fuck if you call me a rebel.
All right, guys, we are back. Main Event Madness Radio, August the 18th edition of the broadcast. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Thursday night to come hang out with us. We really appreciate it, guys. And now, two things I want to get to, because I forgot to get to this before. The situation with my dad, and I'm not going to try to, like, shill for sympathy, but Mike, you know the situation I'm talking about. The fact that that song came on, you can't make that shit up.
Agreed.
You really can't. Like, that's some WWE shit right there. That is some WWE shit right there. But nonetheless, are you saying it's not epic, or are you saying it is epic?
I am saying that it is epic in the other sense of epic.
So it was horrible. Or really? I don't think it was that bad.
Absolutely. It is actually like if I had a choice between listening to that and you know what that is, or like I'm just gonna come out and say, you should be suspended just as a result of that act. So,
wow.
Yep.
Wow. That's been a long time since. That's been a long time since I've been put on blast like that. I like it.
I bring the opinions on Thursday because people that show up to work have to bring the opinion.
Well, I do at least appreciate you showing up, unlike our other co-host, who, due to his suspension, I will not mention his name. Although
Absolutely
you could,
not. Nor should.
But that suspension will be addressed this Sunday on the Main Event Madness SummerSlam pregame show, as I am making him have to sit out it'll have been almost 2 weeks since he'll have been on the show. And I don't know. Should we allow him on the SummerSlam pregame show? Because we hear
the public needs to decide.
They do. We here at Main Event Madness Radio take our etiquette very seriously. And the fact that Mark violated those expectations in such a vicious and, quite frankly, delinquent way that, and I'm sorry, I know I mentioned his name. I think we are going to have him on here because I think we're going to have a confrontation. I think we're going to have a confrontation, and we're going to bring back Brandon Lasher from TGRWrestling.net as well into the fold, as well as Wayne Daly of Wrestling-News.net. And we're gonna have to listen to him. We're gonna have to make him plead his case. I think that's what we're gonna have to do.
That's democratic.
But nonetheless, guys, Eva Marie. I just want to know, and Wayne, you're listening right now. Can you put a tweet out? And I will retweet this, but I want to know: are people that upset, actually that upset, that she was suspended? And in case you guys didn't see this, yes, Eva Marie. You know what? I got to do it. I got to do it. Give me 1 second. I got to do this.
Back here on Smack.
Nope. But you'll see where I'm getting at.
Crispy good. From Concord, California, comes the most stylish,
Suspended.
elegant,
Suspended.
bewitching,
Suspended.
eternally beguiling,
Eternally suspended.
continuously charismatic,
Continuously suspended.
fantastically
Suspended.
woman to appear in this or any arena. Allow yourself to be seduced,
And suspended.
tempted,
Suspended.
dazzled,
Suspended.
and entranced
Suspended.
by all red everything herself.
Suspended. I kind of just went like Corey Matters from like Boy Meets World on that. Oh, I'm thoroughly enjoying that she got suspended. And I don't wish anything bad on anybody, but I just think it's hilarious that they're trying to shove her down our throats. Horrible innuendo there. And she gets suspended. And I really want to know what for.
Well, I mean, listen, you can tell without even trying that she had enhancement. So it's pretty obvious to me. Oh, those are different kind of enhancements. I'm sorry.
Those are typically nice enhancements.
Absolutely. But,
Typically.
You know, it's unfortunate. I mean, listen, and that comes on the heels of, to I imagine your other point, several other big suspensions. All of a sudden, WWE is, half the roster is getting suspended again.
And there's a fake tweet that a buddy of mine sent out that it was like, what? Not quite sure what that's about. But nonetheless, while I'm trying to figure this out, at this time, coming all the way from the land of awesomeness known as pwpnation.com, Toph is back, I believe.
Hey, what's up?
What's up, Toph? How you doing, man?
Yeah, just Netflixing. Was watching Justice League, trying to check out this Jessica Jones stuff and procrastinating it for a while. I've learned that most wrestling fans also like comic book stuff, so, go figure.
This is true. So I wanted you to come on to this segment because I figured this was a very good segment to have you on and get your opinion on as well. Is WWE too petty for their own good. Now, there are a lot of reasons, Toph and Mike, that I think this. Number one, Dean Ambrose, there's reports going out that Dean Ambrose evidently has heat because he was honest in his opinions in the Stone Cold podcast. And I just fail to understand why. Because everything that he said was true. And I mean, and after watching that match between Dean and Brock at WrestleMania, Toph, I mean, did you see the Stone Cold podcast with Dean?
I fast forwarded through most of it, but I did see the end that everybody was talking about.
Well, it's like he had mentioned that Brock was being lazy with WrestleMania, and after watching that, it makes all the sense in the world because, I mean, it was really Brock goes in, beats him up, chair F5 on the chairs, 1, 2, 3. Like, it really looked like Dean had to improvise. And I get most of the wrestlers have to improvise in the matches, but, like, nothing was put together for it. Like, there was no real story there in that match. Granted, there's no real stories in any of the matches at WrestleMania, but that's a story for another day. No pun intended. That's example number one. Number two, Paige gets suspended on her birthday, but the suspension doesn't take place until the next day. Why couldn't she get suspended the next day then? Del Rio gets suspended. Not until the next day. Now, evidently, there are a lot of people coming out and questioning why they were suspended. Paige's parents both came out on Twitter and are questioning why she was suspended. Eva Marie's husband has questioned why she was suspended. Meanwhile, Alberto Del Rio is probably like, "Fuck yeah, I got a month off before I leave this company." Woohoo! And it's just little things that have built up over time, but it's like this company is truly pathetic. And I think I've finally made the turn on my. I mean, I'll watch WWE. You know, it's like anything. He's still criticizing. You'll still watch it, but I damn sure wouldn't be paying $45. So thank God they made the network. I definitely wouldn't be spending $55, $45, $60, whatever it is for a damn pay-per-view. But Toph, I just wanted your thoughts. Is WWE too petty with for their own good?
Yeah, they can be at times. To me, the most obvious example of them being petty was what happened with Titus O'Neil earlier this year.
Yes.
I think there was an interview with Batista earlier in the year. I think Batista was at no, it wasn't an interview. He was at an airport, and like a TMZ guy was just asking Batista questions. And I remember what Batista said. The part of the interview that I remember was he said that they could have given Titus a 30-day suspension, but they gave him a 90-day, and then they lowered it to a 60-day. And Batista said he did that purposefully so he could miss a Mania payday. So it was like he purposefully gave him a 60-day just so he could miss Mania. You know, that's petty, especially for, you know, a guy like Titus who's nice. It's not like he's rocked the boat before. Like, for instance, take someone like, I don't know, I'm not throwing shade at the guy, but take someone like Ken Anderson. You know, when he was getting his push, he messed up a few times, you know, getting injured at the wrong time, stuff like that. Another example of WWE's pettiness would be the whole AJ Lee thing. You know, when they had Nikki Bella break her record only for her to, like, drop the belt, like, 7 days later. Like, that was just petty. That was like, oh, you know, we don't want to associate AJ Lee, whatever. So, I mean, yeah, WWE can be petty sometimes.
I'm happy you brought that up because I actually forgot my second point, and you just reminded me. These WWE 24 specials are normally fantastic. The women's Revolution one is no exception. It was a great piece. WWE did a great job with it. What I have a problem with is how much they went out of their fucking way to put the Bellas over. To make the Bellas look like the heroes, like they were these great wrestlers and great divas, great women in the division. And the fact that they spent as much time as they did to emphasize that they're the ones that carried the torch between Trish and Lita and where we are today. I'm sorry, but the fact that there wasn't even one reference to Melina, Mickie James, Beth Phoenix outside of a 5-second thing when she was pregnant, and a 2-second picture of AJ Lee. What about Caitlyn? What about Eve Torres? And I'm forgetting a lot of them. Jillian Hall even helped carry it. I mean, even Alicia Fox, which granted they did
petty,
give her.
Man. The women's division is very petty. It's very petty. It's hard for me to take the women's division seriously. Like for instance, take Gail Kim for instance. She always takes shots at WWE, not necessarily the company, but more so like the Divas division. Like, look at it this way. Everybody's had a job. At least I hope most folks have had a job. And you can have a job, and it's like at the time that you work there, the job is bad. Maybe the coworkers are incompetent. Maybe the manager is incompetent. Maybe the whole staff's incompetent. So you're like, you know what? This place isn't fun. You leave. So then, 5 years later, that same job that you were at, the same complaints that you said that were on deaf ears, now all of a sudden people are on the right page. So that same job you hated, now good things are going on at that job you left. Great. But it still doesn't change the fact that when you were there, you said this was the problem and no one listened. So it's like in 2009, 2010, when you had girls like Gail and Melina and Beth Phoenix, those were and a few others, but the Divas roster was predominantly divas, model search looking chicks. And now it's they're putting emphasis on women's wrestling. And what I don't get about it is people are talking about how WWE is reviving women's wrestling when it's always been alive, in the independents. If I recall correctly, that was kind of one of the things that put TNA on the map, was a serious women's division. So it's just, I don't get it.
I don't get where they tried, and I give them a lot of props and a lot of credit for trying. They tried to make it out to be like the Bellas were serious wrestlers their entire tenure. They did a great job. If you're a casual person watching the product, you'd believe it. But then you look at that, and they did a great job showing Brie Bella in the same 4 shots as Divas champion when she was only champion for a month. Or the bullshit reign that Nikki Bella had because of AJ Lee. And I do understand I'm contradicting myself quite a bit because I have stuck up for Nikki Bella. And that's a conversation for another day. But the fact that the Bellas have been in WWE, yes, they left for a year, but the fact that the Bellas have been in WWE for 9 years and they were valets, they were arm candy for the guest hosts, and they didn't start wrestling until 2012 for a month or two, and then they left, and then they came back. Oh, and what did they do? They were arm candy for Total Divas. And it wasn't until AJ Lee and CM Punk pissed them off. And, well, we want to outdo that. So, to hell with letting Paige do it. Because we don't want to have let a young wrestler have that feather in their cap. No. We're going to put it on the one that... We're going to put it on the one that they hate. The one who doesn't deserve it. The one who didn't spend... Yes, Nikki Bella has spent years busting her ass to get better. But you mean to tell me that Nikki Bella deserved that title reign more than Paige?
Well, no, but I think to the point you guys are making, this is not the issue here, John. Is this is not new? It's not new. I mean, WWE has always relied on their inner circle and who they like and don't like to make their booking decisions in many cases. And again, I mean, they are the boss, so they can do what they want to do. It's not always going to line up with what we like, but you're talking about a company where when guys who made tons of money for them, okay, and by no means am I a Hulk Hogan booster in terms of some of the decisions he's made, but Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage made ridiculous amounts of money, buckets of money for Vince McMahon. And when they said, hey, we want to make more money with WCW, WWE not only sued them in a time when, not them, but sued WCW for, the way that they were presented and trying to capitalize as if they created these characters when, in reality, the wrestlers had as much to do with it as anything else. But they presented parodies of them on their television, which weren't even good, by the way. So the point is, what could be more petty than that? I mean, you take guys that have been champions that you said are the best ever, and they leave and take another job, not because they hate you, but because the other place is paying more. And you spend valuable time instead of making new stars, making fun of, these guys and saying they're too old and they can't wrestle when you would be more than happy to have them on your roster. So, the point is, it's been going on forever, and I'm sure it will continue to, because of the way that the business is based. But there's no doubt that, unfortunately, that's okay. You can do that, but you can't let it get in the way of making a bad business decision. And I think that's, more of what you guys are talking about, is if you let the personal get in the way of doing the right thing for the product, that's a big mistake. And unfortunately, they sometimes still do that, but I just don't feel like it's new because I think they've done it for years.
Another example of pettiness, I don't know the full story yet. I got to do some more research on it. I know Cody Rhodes has been working the independents and stuff. I think he's scheduled to make an appearance at Ring of Honor Final Battle at the end of the year. I'm not sure, but I know there's some type of a quiet lawsuit going on where WWE is actually trying to take away his use of the Rhodes last name. And that's kind of petty, because it's like he's Cody. Everyone knows him as Cody Rhodes. So, and I know Cody, he said on Twitter point blank that he's not taking away the name and he's willing to go to court for it. Interestingly enough, Cesaro was the one that retweeted that, which really made me fearful for Cesaro. I was like, oh man, they start burying him, and we know why.
That was
so,
which is actually coincidental, Toph, considering since he tweeted that, he has been buried.
Yeah,
and if you look at him in the booking, yeah, and I mean, I don't know that many people that would disagree with Cesaro. Like, there's no way that ends good. There's no way that ends good.
But you said, and it's true. I mean, the Ambrose thing, no one's questioning that he was giving his honest opinion. But he was giving his honest opinion on something being promoted by the WWE. And so whether it's a spoken or unspoken contract, they don't want their talent saying anything that's going to upset them. Look at what happened to Joey Styles. You want to talk about,
that man should be applauded. He went out and did a shoot promo on WWE's dime, getting paid by WWE.
He offered his, what you would think is his honest opinion, and he's been a good soldier for them, obviously, for a long time. And they took that opportunity to say, see you later. Now, you could argue and say he shouldn't have said what he said if he worked for them.
What did he say exactly that got him fired?
Well, a couple things. He critiqued the Universal Championship, which, as I mentioned earlier, you are allowed to do, but only if you are authorized by WWE to do it. So
Very true.
If you go and critique it, by the way, it's interesting because you were talking about how Ambrose went after Lesnar's performance. I'm sure you guys both know that Daniel Bryan was critical of Brock Lesnar as being a part-time performer and only showing up to work a little bit on a WWE show, and there's been no repercussions from that because they, I'm sure, gave him a script and said, you're going to go out and start something with Brock Lesnar because it's going to help push this match with Randy Orton.
Not even that. That's Cena's brother-in-law. Of course they're not going to do anything to him. Of course.
It's the second time Daniel Bryan went after the Universal Championship, and that was fine. And then Joey Styles also had some comments about Roman Reigns and he supports him. And again, that's a hot button issue for the company right now. So all I'm saying is, there's example after example. But like you said about Cody Rhodes, in some cases, these guys this is their gainful employment. And the company is letting this personal stupidness get in the way of making the right decision for business. The WWE is a better company if Cody Rhodes is in it. And if anybody doubts that, I feel sorry for them because it's obvious just based on watching the talent level. Now, he made the decision to leave, but they create an environment. I mean, look at how they treated every member of his family. You know, again, if you go back to wrestling history, they made his dad wear polka dots, and, you know, they created a character in Virgil that was supposed to be making fun of Dusty Rhodes, because that's his real name. Like, and they do this in-joke stuff that, you know, many people don't get. It's over their head because they're not in the business, but they think it's really funny. And you know, so I just feel like it's come full circle. They've kind of always been like that, and it's one of the unfortunate things about the fact that Vince has been in charge as long as he has. They like to do this kind of stuff, and they don't really care whether the three of us agree with it or not.
We're not even touching on one of the biggest ones. How many times did Vince McMahon and the WWE get away with harassing? Yeah, I'll call it harassing because it borderline is Jim Ross.
Oh.
How many times did they degrade that man and embarrass that man? And he had to have surgery, and he missed 8 months of his career.
Yeah.
And they did what was it? Not Dr. Bedpan, but whatever it was, that surgery segment where he's like, oh, I got it. JR's head was up his ass. Like, really, Vince? The fact that a year later and then he fired him.
Then they fired him for losing control of a press conference with Ric Flair. I mean, like, again, you're right. This, you know, Jim Ross is, by all accounts, really good, really knowledgeable guy, disagrees on some of the fundamentals of what Vince wants to do. And it's just kind of sad when you use your position to sort of, you know, I mean, again, you get what you get if you're in the sports entertainment business. There's no doubt about it. You know, whatever kind of flaws you're going to have, if there's something that's uncomfortable, having those exposed, you're going to have a short career in the WWE. But I agree. I feel like that's outright mean. And that's just where it's like Vince saying, well, you are a WCW guy, you're not my guy, and I'm going to make you earn it. Where somebody else, you know, David Otunga, we're just going to hand you a job because you're the husband of a celebrity.
Who has been irrelevant for 5 years.
That's why, you know, when guys like Kenny Omega or Bobby Lashley or MVP, you know, when guys like that show up on an interview and they say they got WWE offers, but they're happy at where they're at, and then fans all of a sudden be like, oh, you know, how come they don't want to go back to WWE, or how come they don't want to go there? It's like anyone, unless you've been living under a rock, it's just become apparent that right now WWE is just really just not a fun place to work. You know, it all goes back to what CM Punk said. He'll take mental sanity over a payday any day. And if you look at some of these other places like Lucha Underground, TNA, Ring of Honor, you can honestly tell that these guys are having fun. You know, what do you want to choose? Do you want to choose a mental sanity? You want a good mental sanity with a good paycheck over a really good paycheck, but you're just going to go crazy. And you're seeing more and more guys leave WWE. Cody left, Ryback left, Wade Barrett left. And it's not like these dudes are being released. These are guys allowing their contracts to expire. You know, fans have been very quiet about this. We're seeing more and more people just straight up letting their contracts expire, and then they're just leaving. It's not like they're being fired, because being fired, that's something else. Like what happened to Adam Rose, that's being fired. Like when you're letting your contract expire, that means I'm out. You know, it's kind of like, because really the only person that did that, like before, was like Christian, like back in 2005. Now you're seeing more people do that. Cody did it, Ryback did it, Wade Barrett did it, Damien Sandow did it. More and more people are just like, you know what, I'm good. They're going elsewhere.
You know, and
that
you
says something about what's going on backstage.
You touched on a really good one in Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley had the biggest rocket up his ass by the time he got hurt in 2007. And for those of you listening who may not know what I'm talking about, Bobby Lashley was basically pegged to be the John Cena light. Basically the 1A to John Cena's number 1. Like, they pushed him harder than they are Roman Reigns, but it was accepted. Bobby Lashley, I don't care who you are, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, Bobby Lashley was white hot that summer. Being stripped of the ECW title, that feud with McMahon at WrestleMania, and then that match with John Cena at the Great American Bash was one of my favorite matches of all time. or at least not of all time, but at least of that decade. I'll take the all-time part back, but I'll say of that decade. Not my favorite match, but one of my favorite matches. And then gets fired because Michael Hayes wants to be racist and doesn't want to book him on SmackDown because of his race. Really? Is this 1950? And I'm not excusing it by any stretch of the imagination. Don't get me wrong. But the fact
and he's doing good.
And he's doing good. And you know what it was? Part of me thinks he was outdrawing crowd reaction-wise, because if you remember, Bobby Lashley was getting cheered more than John Cena. Bobby Lashley was more accepted by the fans than John Cena. So that, I think, might have had something to do with it. But the fact that they let him go the way he did, it just... Or no, they didn't let him go. He quit. He quit. That's right.
Yeah, he quit. And now he's in TNA. He's the TNA champion. He's got the other titles. He's the X Division champion. He's the King of the Mountain champion. He's got this whole destroyer thing going. I'm not going to sit here and say he's Jake the Snake Roberts on the mic, because he's not. But he's gotten better. He's one of the most improved performers in the world from any promotion, and no one's giving him any credit because it's TNA, because of just all the stuff they've been through. But he's really improved. He's tolerable on the mic. I'm not saying he's ready for like a WrestleMania push or something like that, but he's made a good living of himself, and he's got a good thing going. He's good in the ring. He's good on the mic. He's okay. He's tolerable. If he was like on a Raw or a SmackDown like today, he would be fine. And he's doing good. He's got a good thing going. He's doing the indies as well. And most recently he was interviewed, and they said, "Hey, man, how you feel about going back to WWE?" And he said, "I'm good right now. I'm good." And that just surprised so many fans. I'm like, but why? He's having a good time. He's clearly like having a good time, and he's making good money.
And he's got the Bellator thing going on. WWE's hardly going to let him compete in Bellator and WWE at the same time. His name's not Brock Lesnar. I mean, he's not. Bottom line, they are not going to let him do these outside ventures that he wants to do. But it is what it is.
Right.
And I'm going to take a timeout from this for a second, because I do want to introduce a man who is going to shock the world and is very intelligent. You guys can hear him each and every week on Legends TV on MadhouseTV.com. You guys can check him out at Evan Ginsberg's inspiring Facebook page, where he spouts out nothing but inspirational messages to try to cheer up the masses, because there are far too many people getting way too salty, like myself, over professional wrestling and other things going on. He is my mentor in more ways than one. Evan Ginsberg. Hello, sir.
Hey, how you guys doing tonight? Glad to be back.
I'm doing good. We're having a conversation, and Toph, you can stick around if you want. We're having a conversation. We are going to get to the Cruiserweight Classic in about 10 minutes, but I figured we'd get you in on this. And this is one you would probably be licking your chops to take a part of.
Okay.
Is WWE too petty for their own good?
I think when you don't allow wrestlers to use their real names on indies, I think that's pretty petty. I think that's the definition of petty. Look, these guys struggle once they leave WWE. They're hot for a minute, and then, they're just trying to survive out there in the indies. And, don't take away their names. And, and chasing after tape dealers, it's such small potatoes for the most part. And when I see, for example, Baylor Club T-shirts that look exactly like Bullet Club T-shirts, I think everybody liberally borrows, shall we use the term, and I think sometimes for a billion-dollar corporation, you just have to look the other way at times, and you can't control and own everything. And for the most part in the United States, they do. TNA and Ring of Honor and anybody else is so far behind WWE dollars and cents and TV power and merchandising and everything else. Yeah, that's a long-winded way of saying yes, they can be very petty.
It's just there's more ways, and there are way too many. And I will go back actually to Mike's point about Randy Savage. That is an egg on Vince McMahon's face that will never wash away. The fact that he didn't make any I even look at, and Evan may be able to tell me this better. Obviously, he would. He's good friends with Lanny Poffo. It really seemed like it was half-assed amends with the Poffo family that Vince McMahon did. And it's an egg on Vince's face that because he never got to make amends with Macho Man himself, and because it was such a bullshit reason that they had a beef or any kind of dispute, and it just. Am I wrong in saying, Evan, that it seemed like a half-assed amends with the Poffo family? That, to your knowledge?
The way Lanny explains it to me, McMahon was looking for a more youth-oriented product. Randy was not a kid anymore, and Randy went to WCW, and Randy made more money with Slim Jims than he did with pro wrestling, from what I understand. And McMahon wants to control everything. I don't think McMahon wanted Hulk Hogan to go do Rocky 3, from what I understand. You can't just, they're not puppets. They're human beings, and it's almost like a kid with an old toy, and you get tired of them after a while. All of a sudden, somebody's not in favor anymore, and all of a sudden they're losing regularly, or you don't even see them on TV, and you forget they're under contract. It's a brutal business, and I think ass kissing and networking, is a way to stay on top, and not everybody has that temperament. And Randy Savage was certainly his own man, and Randy Savage was going to do what he needed to do. And I don't think I think another thing that I know upset Lanny was when they were doing those skits and making fun of Randy. He was old, he was losing his hair, etc., so on. It was really kind of vicious and unnecessary. Somebody that made them an awful lot of money and had some of the greatest matches of all time that elevated their generally mediocre product. Steamboat and Savage was wrestling elevated to an art, as great a match as you're ever going to see, the WrestleMania match. Far better match, obviously, than Hogan and Andre on the same show. So, I tend to agree with you. I don't think they did good by that family at the time, anyway.
Well,
go ahead.
I could promise you, John, that to Evan's point, if Rocky III had been a WWE Studios production, we wouldn't have had the end of promotion for it. So that's the part that bugs me the most. I think it's exactly what I've said. Like, this is a billion-dollar company. It's okay if you don't win all the time, but don't be so obvious. It's kind of my point. Like, if you want to be evil behind the scenes, that's on you. There's nothing we can really do about that. My understanding with the Randy Savage thing was I know they had him doing commentary, and he was kind of like, hey, I can still go in the ring, and I think he proved that. I mean, he certainly wasn't going to recreate the Steamboat match, but he, sold a lot of tickets after he went to WCW. So he carried the point. I'm just saying, like, on top of them being petty, it's a double standard, and I think it's a very obvious double standard where if you're doing something outside of their purview, they want no parts of it. It's horrible. But if you're, going to pony up and do what they'd like you to do, they're going to tell you that it's the greatest thing ever. I guess it's human nature, but it doesn't mean that we have to like it. And I think, it's just when it's really, really obvious like that, what other opinion could you have?
Very true. It's nights like this, because I could go on and on and on about this, that I wish we could do 3 hours. Unfortunately, that's not in the cards. Toph, any last thoughts or anything you want to promote before we move on in this?
Yes, I just like to remind people that Sabu has a GoFundMe, GoFundMe.com, and Sabu has a hip surgery that's scheduled next month, and RVD has championed him on this, and Marty Jannetty and other greats, and he has a legitimate surgery. He's in constant pain, and I hope the fans will be kind enough to support Sabu, and it's www.gofundme.com/pro-wrestler-Sabu. And for the naysayers, I can assure you that this is 100% legit. I know the date of the surgery, and please support it.
Awesome stuff. Toph, are you still with us?
Yeah, I'm still here. No, I got no other issues. We can move on to the cruiserweights.
Awesome. So we are going to break the time-space continuum here. And what do I mean by that? I mean, Evan is going to be the one to say something kind about WWE tonight.
I'm going to go beyond kind. Last week's episode, the one with Grand Metalik against Tajiri, and the other match, which last week's show, Cruiserweight Classic, was as great a WWE show as I've seen in 20 years. And all I could say is it's almost schizophrenic that as bad as Raw is, that's how great the Cruiserweight Classic was last week, and it was quite good yesterday as well. Anthony Nese, what I saw yesterday, he's better than, I would say, 80 or 90% of that roster right now. I don't know why he's not on Raw or SmackDown. And the Cruiserweight Classic is excellent pro wrestling. Pro wrestling, not sports entertainment. Wrestling as an art form. Wrestling that would... If you had somebody who had never seen wrestling before, sit down and watch some of those matches. I forget the British kid's name, doing the all the holds. The kid's tremendous. Tremendous.
Jack Gallagher or Zack Sabre Jr.?
Yeah, Gallagher. Yeah, that kid's tremendous. Reminds me of Billy Robinson and guys from back in the day. And it's a pleasure to watch that. And then you're watching Raw with the bad comedy and the stilted dialogue and the ridiculous bits, and it's endless chatter. And you just go, it's the same company that puts out both these products. It's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling.
I want to get everybody's thoughts. Is it? Oh, go ahead.
Thank you for mentioning how schizophrenic WWE is. Here is one of the biggest examples of the schizophrenia that WWE has. Money in the Bank 2011 is viewed by many as one of the best pay-per-views of the modern era. Had a great build, had good matches, great crowd, was a very good show. But what many fans forget, the pay-per-view before that, Capital Punishment, was one of the worst pay-per-views of this era, of all time. Horrible matches, horrible build. In 2011, the worst pay-per-view of the year was right next to the best pay-per-view of the year.
I said this year, WrestleMania was not as good as many of the B pay-per-views. It didn't touch some of the B pay-per-views this year. WrestleMania was a mediocre show for the most part. And
it was a very piss poor job by the company to capitalize on what they could do. Very piss poor job.
I would say that every pay-per-view is variations on a theme. You have 2 or 3 very good matches, good, very good, great, and the rest of it is instantly forgettable, disappointing, mediocre, whatever. The shows themselves are schizophrenic. The quality from match to match, is so. You go from extremely good to extremely bad on the very same show. It doesn't make sense. The Cruiserweight Classic, everybody's good. Good, very good, and great.
Is it safe to say that the best match of the Cruiserweight Classic so far, at least in my opinion, was Cedric Alexander and Kota Ibushi?
Absolutely. I think best match.
Toph?
Cedric Alexander, by losing, became a star. He was so phenomenal. Another guy that could be on the main roster tomorrow.
In a few tomorrows, he probably will be, because I think he's coming to the main roster with the Cruiserweight division. Am I wrong on that, or was it NXT that he was? Do either you know?
It's supposed to be a little bit of both. Triple H doesn't know. They really don't know. This Cruiserweight thing is all just an experiment, so we got to see where it goes. But what I am hearing that Kota Ibushi has opted to not sign a full-time contract, so take that however you want it.
You want to know something?
And that's a blow to the Cruiserweight division, too. But go ahead, Evan.
The SmackDown roster is so mediocre. They should just take a half dozen of these cruiserweights tomorrow and put them on. It would just make it a better product. They're a very weak brand.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I think we had mentioned earlier on in the show, talk about NXT, that Samoa Joe we could see coming up to the main roster possibly this fall. If he does, he has to go to SmackDown. He has to go to SmackDown.
Well, they have.
Yeah, they gotta keep Joe as far away from Roman as possible.
And there's one thing we didn't touch on earlier, and I don't mean to deviate too much from the CWC, but evidently there's some talks of a trade already between Raw and SmackDown. I don't know if either of you guys have heard of this. Evidently, Randy Orton's going to go to Monday Night Raw, and Sheamus and Kevin Owens are going to go to SmackDown.
Yeah, I don't care too much about Sheamus.
I don't either, but I don't know how to feel about Randy Orton going to Raw, because I think Randy Orton has too many feuds on Raw that he's already done. I mean, what are you going to do?
I'd like to see Randy Orton and Cena another 320 times. They wrestled 320 times already. So some fan counted it. So
they had way too much time.
Yeah, can you imagine some kid counting this? Like it's important?
I'd like to see Cesaro on SmackDown. That's pretty much all I want.
I think that would be good, but I mean, who do you realistically put Randy Orton against? I mean, Seth Rollins and Orton, they're already blue in the face with that feud. And if you have them as a babyface, I mean, you can get at most 2 months out of Rusev and Orton. Where do you go from there?
They'd have to turn them heel if they're doing what you're saying, because they're swapping them for two heels, so it doesn't. I would think if that's an accurate statement. But I agree that I think SmackDown, it looks really bad. I mean, they don't have enough to fill 2 hours, and it's not because, some of it is because they don't use the talent properly, but how you take the cruiserweights and put them on Raw, which is already way stacked over SmackDown, is silly. For the very beginning, I said, John, I said many times that they should have divided this up and made it the old guard against the young guard and had SmackDown really do what we thought, which is there's the Daniel Bryan connection, do the young guys that we haven't seen before, make it interesting, make it exciting. And they chose to just do what they did the last time, which is, well, here's part A and here's part B. And part A is going to have most of the people that you're tuning in to see. And then, by the way, not to continue the rant, but they're not giving AJ Styles anything to do on SmackDown. This week he was on commentary. and doing a backstage thing. They didn't even have him wrestle. So
and they have Gallows. They got Gallows and Anderson doing comedy. You got two Steve Orton badass types. It's so ridiculous.
I agree with that too.
Nonetheless, I think we can all agree WWE is the one with their heads up their asses. And as bright as the future of WWE looks with some of these talents, it is a very, very cloudy vision to the future. Having said that, what is not a cloudy vision is what Evan's about to tell us for this week's Legends TV.
On this week's Legends TV, we have the Michael Packer Blues Band, who's playing the White House in September. Blues for Peace. It's an organization where blues musicians go out there and try to create peace through music. And I say it all the time. I'll go to a concert and you'll see every race, creed, color, age. You know, everybody gets along. Everybody has a great time, and otherwise everybody's killing each other. So I think music does have a very soothing effect on people. So anyway, Michael Packer Blues for Peace, Legends TV, Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern at madhousetv.com, archived 24/7. And check out the Wrestling Then and Now documentary on Amazon Prime. We have Killer Kowalski, Dr. Death, Don Arnold, Nikolai, Homicide, etc., so on. A wrestling documentary that we put together a while back.
And it's on demand if you guys have HBO. The Wrestler, which Evan Ginsberg was an associate producer of, you guys can check out on demand.
And I acted with it.
You did.
We improv'd it, so if you see that scene, it's total improv.
Mike, what is coming up for you? Do you have any other pieces besides your piece about Raw and SmackDown that just came out on tjwrestling.net? Do you have anything else coming up between now and Sunday?
I do, actually, because we're going to have our SummerSlam preview up, which should be tomorrow, so that'll have predictions for all of the matches. I'm very disappointed that I had already written my Ava Marie rant for that match, and it won't even be relevant because she won't even be there, so that's unfortunate.
Why they release her?
Other than that hiccup, it will be hopefully an exciting week. That's always a fun thing to do. And of course, Sunday, John, I'll be hanging out with you, going over those predictions. And I also want to say, in an unrelated note, just for the football fans out there, that it's rare that if you're a Philadelphia sports fan, you get the chance to be excited. But I would just like to point out that while I can, the Eagles are 2-0 in preseason and beat the Steelers and shut them out. Well, hopefully in about 4 minutes. So just thought I would share that. It may be the last chance I have to give any kind of Philadelphia sports praise for the next 9 months.
There you go. Toph, do you have anything you want to promote before we wrap up?
Yeah, just a reminder to fans out there to just check out Ring of Honor, Death Before Dishonor tomorrow. And there's going to be a taping the very next day after that. Adam Cole is going to be fighting Jay Lethal for the title, so that should be cool. Okada is going to be fighting Dalton Castle, and a few other good matches will be there as well. So, if you're not into WWE right now, and you can always watch that. And then there's NXT TakeOver as well. So it's all about options, a lot of options. And that's pretty much all we got.
And Ring of Honor is going to be at Cyclone Stadium in Brooklyn on August 27th. All the, not all, but many of the New Japan guys will be with them. So that should be hot.
Awesome stuff. And I do want to promote, as I had mentioned, or as Mike had mentioned, our SummerSlam pregame show begins Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern. It was planned before the WWE decided they want to do a 64-hour-long pay-per-view on Sunday. So we won't go through the whole pre-show, probably wrap up around 5:30. But nonetheless, 4 p.m. Eastern, wrestling-news.net, our SummerSlam pregame show. For all the information on that, visit our official Facebook page, facebook.com/Main Event Madness. Got a whole jam-packed panel for that. Myself, Mark. I take that back. Myself, he who shall not be named, who is suspended right now. Yeah, if you guys did miss it, our other co-host has been suspended due to violations of our etiquette expectations, which we'll have much more in depth about that on Sunday on our pregame show. But he
John,
will be with us.
I have a quick question. During the SummerSlam 2-hour preview, are they showing any matches, or are they just talking?
I think it's mostly talking in a match or two.
One match in 2 hours?
Yipper. That's why you got to tune in to Main Event
Right.
Madness, because then you'll get the good talking. But
okay, that makes sense.
So we will have our other co-host answering for his suspension, as well as Mike is going to be with us, Brandon Lasher from TJWrestling.net, possibly Wayne Daly, Wrestling-News.net, and Christopher Dunphy that you guys heard with us last week. So we do have a full panel for that, guys. That's, again, 4 p.m. Eastern this Sunday on Wrestling-News.net. And for all the news going into SummerSlam, be sure to check TJWrestling.net, PWPNation.com, and Wrestling-News.net for all the latest news, rumors, and, of course, for everything for NXT TakeOver Brooklyn on Sunday as well. So on that note, guys, we are going to wrap up. And on that note, Toph, Evan, Mike, thank you guys for tonight's show. It's definitely been a very fun show. And yeah, on that note, guys, be good, be safe, be well, and Lord willing, you guys will be with us on Sunday. And I am going to take just a second and say I want to wish my dad the best of luck tomorrow. He's going to find out about his chemotherapy, whether or not it's been working for his liver cancer. So I want to wish my dad the best of luck with that. And on that note, like I said, Lord willing, you guys will be with us on Sunday. SummerSlam pregame, 4 p.m. Eastern, Wrestling-News.net. Take it easy, everybody.
It's summertime. Ladies looking hot, shaking up what they got. Elephant man and cat, come on.
Don't miss live Sunday, August 21st. Main Event Madness brings you its SummerSlam pregame show. Come be a part of the fun beginning live at 4 p.m. Eastern on Wrestling-News.net, blogtalkradio.com/Main Event Madness as we talk all the news, rumors, and predictions for the second biggest event of the year. Join John Curry, Marc Madison, Wayne Daly, Mike Holland, and more August 21st at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss it. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. If you missed a part or all of tonight's show, no problem. We're available on iTunes and also on demand anytime at ProWrestling.biz, Wrestling-News.net, and here at blogtalkradio.com/Main Event Madness. We are every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, and we hope you can join us. We're Main Event Madness. Madness Unleashed. Have a good one, everybody. So long.
Welcome to Staples.
Staples guy, I've resolved to save my office money in 2017.
Well, during Staples' January printing event, you save big when you buy one HP ink and get the second 40% off.
Oh, that kind of savings will impress the boss. Maybe this year he'll stop calling me new guy Nick.
Well, there are worse nicknames.
I've worked there 6 years, and my name's Doug.
Resolve to save during Staples' January printing event. Buy one HP ink and get the second 40% off. Staples, make more happen.
Ends 1/14/17. See store staples.com for details. Restrictions may apply.
Welcome to Staples.
Staples guy, I've resolved to save my office money in 2017.
Well, during Staples' January printing event, you save big when you buy one HP ink and get the second 40% off.
Oh, that kind of savings will impress the boss. Maybe this year he'll stop calling me new guy Nick.
Well, there are worse nicknames.
I've worked there 6 years, and my name's Doug.
Resolve to save during Staples' January printing event. Buy one HP ink and get the second 40% off. Staples, make more happen.
Ends 1/14/17. See store or staples.com for details. Restrictions may apply.